Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namini Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasari Nirvesha Sunyavadi Pastacharya Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasarine Nirvasesha Sanyavadi Pastyachari Sakarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Govinda Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Nam Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Ramo Ramo Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Janabalabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Janabalabha Giri Bharadhari Giri Bharadhari Yasodhanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Giri Bharadhari Yasodhanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Gita Jayanti Ki Jai Transcendental Book Marathon Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Paraseshwar Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Savada Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Sachi Sutta Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glorious to Sri Prabhupada, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani, Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Vichardini, Nirvasesha Sanyavadi Pastichade Shatani, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, whatever it may be, wherever you may be. We hope it's all good. And today we're going to be continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2. I think it's text number 25. And we hope you all had either, well, I don't know when you're celebrating Gita Jayanti, today or yesterday or the day before, I don't know. And in France, yesterday was Gita Jayanti Day, as well as Ekadashi, of course. And some devotees were chanting the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Some were distributing the Bhagavad Gita, and some were doing neither. But we hope you were doing one of the two first ones, to honor and to absorb ourselves in the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, the holy words of Lord Sri Krishna, to purify, to guide, benefit the entire universe. So we had mostly here in France, we had devotees also doing recitals at the temples and other places at homes and so on. But mostly the hardcore, we put it like that, the hardcore devotees, they were out distributing books, some of them, and not here, but in some parts of our outer areas of France, the devotees, some devotees started very early in the morning and finished very late at night distributing books. And altogether, yesterday we haven't got the final scores, but just the Gitas alone, but other things were distributed. Bhagavatam sets, Arabic books, many French and English small, medium books were also distributed, but about approximately 430 Bhagavad Gitas were distributed, which we know of so far in France yesterday, which doesn't sound very much, but for France it's quite a lot. It's rare that we do that many in one day amongst everybody. Combined force. In fact, one devotee broke our recent Bhagavad Gita distribution record yesterday. Bhaktin, in fact, Bhaktin Allison distributed 87 Bhagavad Gitas herself yesterday. She's at home, she was distributing alone in her hometown. So even without the direct association of devotees, she enthusiastically goes out to distribute Prabhupada's books. This is a glorious way to celebrate or to honor Krishna, or Gita Jayanti, excuse me. And we hope you also had opportunities to distribute Prabhupada's books yesterday, or at least recite the Bhagavad Gita. So today we're continuing with the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text 25. Bejire maniyotagre Bhagavantam adokshajam Satvang Vishudam Shemaya Kapante tu Nutanhiha. Which just goes through four the verse. Excuse me. Word for word. Bejire, rendered service unto. Munayaha, the sages. Ata, thus. Agre, previously. Bhagavantam, unto the personality of Godhead. Adokshajam, the transcendence. Satvam, existence. Vishudham, above the three modes of nature. Chemaya, to derive the ultimate benefit. Kalpante, deserve. Yea, those. Anu, follow. Tan, these. Excuse me, those. Iha, in this material world. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. Well, here we have it. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from this material world. Just by following such great personalities. And the description here of who those great personalities are. The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain, nor to get the simple knowledge of discovering matter from spirit. Simple knowledge. Can you imagine? How simple is that? Discovering matter from spirit, but Prabhupada, discerning rather. Prabhupada is mentioning here the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. And I don't think that many people on this planet are even making any effort whatsoever to discern the difference between matter and spirit. And they certainly don't seem to manifest it in their behavior. Very, very few, as Krishna says, Manushanam Sahasreshu Kasti Jatati Siddhaye. And out of many, probably even said millioneshu in one commentary, out of many thousands among men, hardly one is interested in spiritual life. And of those who are, hardly one knows me in truth, Krishna says. Such a great soul, very, very rare to find such a personality who's actually understood the absolute truth in full, which is the purpose of Bhagavatam, to enable us to fully understand the nature of the personality of Godhead, not just a portion or a part, you could say, of his glories, but his fullness, to understand Krishna, the Supreme Lord, in every respect, without limitation, not subjected to human restrictions or material considerations above the modes of nature. Srimad Bhagavatam directs us to this ultimate realization. Very important. So we read on here. Where were we? They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. And this is the ultimate benefit as described in the beginning of Bhagavatam. Is this very point, to ascertain it was in the purport we were reading, wasn't it? The ultimate aim of religious performances is to release oneself from material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world, where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. So this is the ultimate aim of religion. Whether it achieves it, you have to ask yourself. But that's the aim, the goal. And the simple preliminary knowledge there is to ascertain the difference between matter and spirit, which doesn't necessarily elude people. It doesn't enter their agenda in the first place. What to speak of try to ascertain the difference between the two. It's beyond anyone who's conditioned in this material world cannot understand this subject matter. It's not easy to understand. As long as one's heart is covered over, full of all kinds of material desires and different types of false concepts of the absolute truth, their own philosophies, there's no way that this realization can happen. Heart has to be pure. It comes from realization, not just theoretical analysis or material endeavor. Where laws of religion, therefore, are directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Panitam. And except for the Mahajans or the authorized agents of the Lord, no one knows the purpose of religion. We find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, someone can find that verse. It describes the 12 Mahajans of the universe, whose duty it is to disseminate the objective goal of religion, basically, not just establish some religious principle as they're pertaining to the material world, like mostly is the case, but to also emphasize, clarify the ultimate aim of religious principles, to understand the nature of the personality of Godhead and our relationship with him. And only those who've seen the truth, Krishna says himself, and to approach those who've seen the truth, they can reveal this knowledge unto us. It's very, very rare. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion. All of them render transcendental service unto him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajans and thus attain supreme benefit. End of purport. So if someone could find that verse, I can't remember what it is, which describes, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and so on. Sukadeva, Swami, Narada, all these great persons, the Mahajans, 12 Mahajans. It's not coming to my mind right now where it is in the Bhagavatam, but it's there in the Bhagavatam. I believe someone can look it up, the 12 Mahajans. And if you find it, you can maybe ask Rohini Nandam Prabhu or whoever's hosting today to put it on our screen. Okay, let's go back now to, let's say, view. That's I think the end of the purport. Rohini, you can take us back. Prabhupada, in his, you could say, in his purport, he doesn't deal very much about one or two other points in the verse. He mostly focuses on the importance of following a Mahajan, of following a great personality, a great authority in spiritual life. This is the main emphasis he places there. Although other points are mentioned, for instance, in the verse you can see there, because they render service, these great personalities, great sages, they render service to the Lord. Why? Because this point is there that to understand that Krishna is above the three modes of nature. Now, if we had time, we would have tried to have located quite a few verses in the Bhagavad Gita which emphasize this. I mean, one or two that come straight to mind. You have to excuse me. As always, I'm going to say, we're tired during these sessions, so the brain speed is a little bit below par. So I'm not remembering what we would wish to remember as efficiently as we should. But still, somehow or another, we'll try to share a little bit with you today. So this will be, let's see. Again, as I say, I'm not thinking it's straight. So we look at chapter 4, text 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. And there Krishna says, although I'm unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. His form is transcendental, not of this material world. Atma Maya, in this case, refers to the transcendental nature of the Lord, above the modes. And it's understood as this verse also describes in the verse that one becomes free of sinful reaction by this understanding of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is, in essence, the purpose, you could say, like we can see in text number 9 of the 4th chapter also. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again, but attains to my eternal abode. And if we go to the end of the 4th chapter, we'll jump over a little bit there, we will see, after Krishna's explained, you could say the key verse of the chapter, Tadvidi Pranipati, Pariprashneya Saving, because we went to that verses from that chapter. Having obtained real knowledge from the self-realized soul, Mahajan, you will never fall again to such illusion. For by such knowledge, you will see that all living entities are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Another angle here, that everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything's under his control. So he's not controlled by his energy. The energies are controlled by him. And one who understands this will be free, never fall again. It's such illusion. Knowledge is so important. Even if you are considered the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of misery. The matter of getting into that boat, now that's related to the main point Prabhupada emphasizes here, following on the footsteps of the Mahajans, even if we're not completely liberated, what did Prabhupada say? There, I told my yeah, or maybe read it somewhere, I don't know where it was. And even if one is not completely liberated, still, if one's following the footsteps of the Mahajans, one can attain perfection. Here, whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. And Prabhupada makes this little, we sometimes take that a little bit lightly, following the Mahajans, maybe we're just hearing about them and, going to places they went. Maybe we've got pictures and deities and when we talk about them and so on and so forth. And to some degree, we may be following, but really this principle of following in the footsteps of the Mahajan. Let's see. Following in the footsteps of saintly persons. This is from the Nectar of Devotion. In the Skanda Purana, it advises the devotee follow the path of Acharyas and saintly persons, because by such following one can achieve desired results with no chance of lamenting or being baffled in his progress. As we heard there, they will not fall down. The scripture known as Brahma Yamala states, if someone wants to pose himself as a great devotee without following the authorities of the revealed scriptures, then his activities will never help him to make progress in devotional service. Instead, he will simply create disturbances for the sincere students of devotional service. Those who do not strictly follow the principles of revealed scriptures are called sahajas. Those who have imagined everything to be cheap, who have thus own concocted ideas and who do not follow the scriptural injunctions. This person's simply creating disturbances in the discharge of devotional service. Now, if we go to the Nectar of Instruction, there's a very famous verse in the Nectar of Instruction. It's text number, I guess it's text number 3. I'll just read that. Let me see now. Yeah, here we go. And if you have your Nectar of Instruction, you should follow. There are 6, so let's read the Sanskrit. Utsahan nischayat dayat tat tat karma pavartanat sangachagat satovite shadbir bhakti prasidyati. And that verse means there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. 1, being enthusiastic. 2, endeavoring with confidence. 3, being patient. 4, acting according to regulated principles. Now, it would be a good idea, Rohini, if you can allow me to, I don't know, I can share screen. I guess we could. Allow me to share screen. I don't know. Oh, you've got it there. Fantastic. Well done. Well done. Acting according to regulated principles, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. And 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees. And 6, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. If you go down to purport, you're going to go down a little way, actually. I don't know how far, but quite some distance down. And there's a paragraph beginning with, as explained already, one should not be idle. There's one paragraph that's quite a way down the purport. I don't know if you can find it. And there we say, Prabhupada says here, one should be enthusiastic about executing the regulated principles, tat tat karma pravartana. Neglect of the regulated principles will destroy devotional service. In this Krishna conscious movement, there are 4 basic regulated principles, forbidding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. Our devotee must be very enthusiastic about following these principles. If he becomes slack in following any of them, his progress will certainly be checked. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends tat tat karma pravartanat. One must strictly follow the regulated principles of Vaidhi Bhakti. In addition to these 4 prohibitions, there are positive regulated principles, such as the daily chanting of 16 rounds on japa beads. These regulated principles must be carefully performed with enthusiasm. This is called tat tat karma pravartanat. So we've got this, and we go down further. So that's one thing, to follow those regulated principles. We go down to the next chapter, next paragraph rather, a couple down. Devotional service means transcendental activity, keeping engaged. On the transcendental platform, there is no contamination by the 3 modes of nature. This is called Vishuddha Sattva, the platform of pure goodness, or goodness free from contamination by the qualities of passion and ignorance. We've been reading that in the 2nd chapter, of course. The process of becoming free from the influence of the lower modes and becoming transcendental to the modes. In this Krishna conscious movement, we require everyone to rise early in the morning by 4 o'clock and attend Mangalarti, a morning program, worship. Then read Srimad Bhagavatam and perform kirtan and so forth. Thus, we hold continuous activities in devotional service 24 hours daily. And this is the point here. This is called Satovritti, or following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. It's not some show, it's a practical execution of the instructions of the previous acharyas that we apply their instructions in our lives. We follow the principles in our life, whatever they may be according to us in a particular situation. But this is Satovritti. Following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas means to act according to their directions. That's the secret. Because they teach us how to fill every moment of our day. So there's no question of falling down. If one is fully engaged, Mam Chiyo, if you'll be Chayana, Baki Yogena Sevate, Sukanantam Tichetan, Brahma Bhuya, Kalpate, those when engaged in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance at once, transcends the 3 modes of material nature and comes to the spiritual platform of Brahman. So to transcend those modes, that one, even though we may not be ourselves self-realized, but the faith is there, good fortune to follow a Mahajana Yena Kataksapanta, following the footsteps of the Mahajans. Some another ones in a position Ihayasya Hridasya Kamana Manasagiram, that is considered that even though we may not be liberated in one sense, one is engaged in devotional service is considered in the liberated platform, as we see if we go back to the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, which we were reading just now. Even if, Krishna says, you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries as a blazing forest fire turns wood into ashes. O Arjuna, so does the tree of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Even the tree of knowledge burns them to ashes, but that tree of real knowledge is what's explained here, that to understand Krishna's position and our relationship with Krishna and to act accordingly. In this world, there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. If we apply that knowledge, next verse, Krishna says, if you apply this transcendental knowledge, you will attain the supreme spiritual peace. And those who are ignorant and faithless, I guess the majority of people, they do not attain God consciousness, they fall down. Or for the doubting soul, there's happiness neither in this world nor the next. I think there's some verses in the 4th canto there. Srila gives us this important point of following in the footsteps of Mahajans. Did you find that verse on the board? Mahajaya Daksapanta. Maybe you can look it up there in the database or something and put it up on the screen. Or we can read this verse, but this is the important thing. How we practice devotional service in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam. Lord Kapila Deva instructs his mother, Satamba Sangam Mama Virya, Samvido Bhavantiyat Karna Masayana Kataha. The devotional services is practiced, relished, in fact, in the association of devotees. And it brings great satisfaction, great peace and satisfaction, blissful feeling within one's own consciousness. When we hear Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. And here we have the verse. Thank you, Rohini. If we can go up to the Sanskrit. Up to the Sanskrit, we can. There we are. Swayambho Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manuhu Palado Janako Bhismo Balivaya Sakivayam Vadashit Vashaite Vijanino Janimo Dharamam Bhagavatam Bataha Uyam Vishudam Devodam Yanyanarita Sampat Yak Jana 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 Vamritam Ashtate. Okay, down we go. Let's read the translation of purport. Lord Brahma, Bhagavat Narada Bhagavan, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the sons of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, and I myself know the real religious principles. Well, this must be in the 6th canto, is it? I didn't look at the verse. Maybe most of you know who's speaking here. Yes, it is. Good. But it wasn't very difficult because speaking here in one of these 3 verses or 4 verses is Lord Yamaraj, none of the Lord of Death. He knows the religious principle. He has to. And like you're going to court a lawyer supposed to know the law. If he doesn't know the law, you've got a real mess. Where do we get to? My dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavat Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It's transcendental, not affected. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns back home, back to Godhead. Let's have a look in a minute at the purport, but this is a secret here. Okay, you've got the purport already, so we'll read the purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna refers to Bhagavat Dharma as the most confidential religious principle. Sarva Guyatamam Guyatarang. Krishna says to Arjuna, because you are my very dear friend, I am explaining this most confidential knowledge unto you. And this is probably the 9th chapter, probably the 1st verse, I guess. The most confidential knowledge. Yeah. And then the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 1, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you were never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and education, knowing which you shall be relieved from the miseries of material existence. You were really good, but I'm not going to go back there. I'm going to go back to the previous one because we were reading the purport, I think. But this is such an important point of understanding Krishna's transcendental nature in a positive way, not in a challenging way. And one may become eligible to become completely free just by knowing Krishna's transcendental position. One becomes free. There is a verse in Gita, I forgot where it is, which directly says that one understands my transcendental nature becomes completely freed of all sinful reaction. We read one already, but there's another one too. So we'll go back to the purport. Sarvadharmam Prithyagya Mamikam Sharanam Vraja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. One may ask, if this principle is very rarely understood, what's the use of it? Water? Water, please. What's the use of it? People may question that. They question many things. What's the use of the Hare Krishna? What good are you doing to anyone? People are starving, and they're always going to starve in this world. You're never going to find a time when they're not, even if they're, people who are 100,000 billionaires, people will still starve. That's the way it goes. The nature of the material world. I'm going to give a call to this. In answer, one may ask me, if this principle is very rarely understood, what's the use of it? In answer, Yamaraj here states that this religious principle is understandable if one follows the Parampara system of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the four Kumars, and understandable authorities, was their heads of various sampradayas, the Madhva Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, and then Bharata Sampradaya, like that. They're the heads of those sampradayas. In answer, Yamaraj states herein that this religious principle is understandable if one follows the Parampara system of Lord Brahma and so on. These are there are 4 lines of disciplic succession from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi, and the Kumaras. The disciplic succession of Lord Brahma is called the Brahma Sampradaya. The succession of Lord Shiva is called the Rudra Sampradaya. The one from the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Ji, is called the Sri Sampradaya, and the one from the Kumaras is called the Kumara Sampradaya. One must take shelter of one of these 4 sampradayas in order to understand the most confidential religious system. Otherwise, the mantras, one receives his mantra but doesn't receive, unless you receive your mantra from the disciplic succession, the mantra will have no effect. For the bona fide, many people have, whatever, following someone, but when you trace it, that person is not in a bona fide disciplic succession. So it may look nice on the surface, there's no connection. It's like perhaps you look at a plug, it may look like a plug. But unless it's connected to the mains, there's no energy, there's no value there. It may be looking nice on the surface, may sound nice, maybe a little bit of some effect may be there, but not from battery or something, but without being connected to the origin, to the source, there's no way that one is going to be released from this material bondage or from sinful reactions and so on. Surrender into Krishna. The disciplic succession teaches how to surrender everything to Krishna. Just unique. The succession from Lord Lakshmi. One must take shelter. In the Padma Purana, it is said, Sampradaya Vihina Ye Mantras Te Nishpalak Madha. If one does not follow the 4 recognized disciplic successions, his mantra or initiation is useless, which we just mentioned. In the present day, there are many apasampradayas, sampradayas which are not bona fide, which have no link to authorities like Lord Brahma, Shiva, Kumaras, and Lakshmi. People are misguided by such sampradayas. We didn't read that part, but in the Nectar of Instruction, the one statement before Satovite, following the footsteps of the Mahajans, or the great devotees of the Lord, was asatsanga, to give up the association of non-devotees, or mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada, and that includes these who take devotional service very cheaply, the sahajas and so on and so forth. Avoiding their service, one practically speaking, applies oneself to the instruction of the particular Mahajan that we're following. This one does not follow the 4 recognized disciplic successions. Remember. Where we get to? I think we're down the bottom. The Shastras state that being initiated in such a sampradaya is a useless waste of time, but it will never enable one to understand the real religious principles. Just because maybe we've got some concoction or following somebody who's not in line, and one may appear biased, but one will never be able to realize one's transcendental nature. That's something given by Krishna through the parampara, through the association of devotees. So Prabhupada says it's a big hallucination to think that one can become Krishna conscious outside the association of devotees. The secret to associate with devotees is a most essential feature of devotional service, and that includes to follow their instructions and try to implement those instructions in our life. That's the practical meaning of following in the footsteps. Okay, we're going to be going today a few places during the marathon today. So we're going to finish there. If there are any questions or comments, feel free to ask. I do apologize for being so tired this morning, drifting off occasionally. Thank you for putting the verse up. I think one or two devotees would put it up. Thank you, Nitya Gopal Prabhu. And whoever else put the first one up, was the same. Yeah, we get right. Any questions are there? Any questions? Please put them in the chat. Interesting to note in the Nectar Devotion, all the various devotional services, number 64, items of devotional service are mentioned by Rupa Goswami, and the first, quite a few of the first ones are all in relationship with approaching a spiritual master and associating with saintly person, which is a very important thing. Accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master, becoming initiated by the spiritual master, and learning how to discharge devotional service from him, obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion, following the footsteps of great acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master, inquiring from the spiritual master how to advance in Krishna consciousness, being prepared to give everything for the satisfaction of the spiritual master or for the personality of Godhead. So you can see all the first six there basically deal with this principle of following the Mahajans, following the great devotees. Okay, so maybe somebody's coming in now, let's see. All right at once. And there are no questions? As well. What are the consequences? Any questions? Yeah, we were out on book distribution for about 6 hours yesterday. I guess I got an excuse to be a little tired. And trying to go out as much as we can during this Prabhupada book marathon. It's a great way to follow in the footsteps of the Manavans. You can't go wrong. It's a simple process which Srila Prabhupada himself demonstrated. Himself was going out alone on book distribution in Delhi and when he was in New York, different parts of India, and encouraging the devotees. So much encouragement through when book distribution started to go a little bit. Probably so much encouraging the book distributors and book distribution as a primary means to evoke a change in this world. Distribution of these books. It may not appear to have an immediately significant effect, but it has the real effect. It starts to change the heart, imperceptibly. The consciousness changes by associating with these books. Just having the books on, for instance, a book table or a book display, people see it, they get some benefit. Want to speak if they touch it, read something, buy it, or whatever it may be. There's so much benefit from displaying these transcendental literatures. So try it wherever you are, try to see if you can put aside a little energy and time this month to assist in this annual derived issue. I think we're trying for 2 or 3 million, I can't remember. Bhagavad Gita is worldwide. And here in France, we're not exactly expecting to do that many in France. Of course, we're not, that's a worldwide figure. But we're aiming at 8,000 this year in France during this give to give Live to Give campaign for the distributing of Bhagavad Gitas. And simultaneously, we're trying to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. We've done about 120 sets so far in the last a month and a half or thereabouts. So something's happening. We can only play a little part. We may not be on that platform, but by following the footsteps of those Mahajans, one can go back to God and become freed of all sinful reactions. So let's try to dedicate ourselves to following in their footsteps. Okay, how to increase sincere devotional service? How to increase sincere devotional service? Very nice. Mahaputra, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Oh, there's another one before that. What are the consequences of not following authority? We stay in the material world. Birth and death, perpetual birth and death. It may be in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, but we're under the modes of nature. The pure devotees of the Lord, that following their path is their path is to worship Krishna, so their path is transcendental. We're not, if you're situated on that path, your goal is transcendence. But if we don't follow them, then we're under the influence of the modes of nature, so we have to stay in the material world. Quite simple. And next one, how to increase sincere devotional service. Generally speaking, increasing devotional service, of course, there has to be a preliminary desire within the heart. And if we're really serious, the process generally is based upon association with those who are more advanced in Krishna consciousness. It may not be that we're in a position to associate all the time, but we have to try to hear. By hearing from those great devotees, that gradually this is the process. You can read this in the previous verses of this chapter. I mean, we just need to be reminded again and again. So rendering service to those great personalities, but hearing from them also. Hearing this subject matter. And this will gradually conviction will come, convince, and faith will grow. And naturally, our service will become more sincere, which means sincere devotional service means unmotivated. It's not motivated by a personal agenda, some material to get some material results from this. It's free of all other desires other than to please Krishna. That's sincere. There's no other mixture. The word sincere means without blemish, with no impediment there, you could say. So it comes from Roman, I think, Roman marble or something like that. But it means pure. So the purification by association, by following the pure devotees, and by chanting Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Darpana Margin, of course, purification comes, and one's service will become more and more sincere. Okay, good question. When it comes to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, we are told to perform detached work without worrying about results or the fruits of our actions. Yes. How should we understand this from a spiritual perspective when performing devotional work? Yes, sometimes in book distribution, we tend to keep an eye on our book scores. Is it okay? You hit the nail on the head here. Is it okay to be result-focused in spiritual activities? At different stages of our devotional life, one will go through different levels. In the beginning, it's like if you have children, when you grow older, you may have a family with kids, and parents, you can ask your parents. But they see as the children grow up, different things motivate the kids to move forward. At some point in time, you've got to just say, well done, even though they haven't really done it very well. But relatively speaking, they're doing something, and it's better than what they were doing before. So encouragement is given to spur them on, encourage them, give them confidence to move forward. So this is in the neophyte stages, And maybe the winner of the marathon will get all the marathon, or a trip to India, or some kind of spur us on so we can do the activity. We may not be in pure consciousness whilst doing it in one sense, or that's not conscious, but pure motivation or understanding even may not be pure, but to motivate to do that activity, which is so important, which is so pleasing to the pure devotees of the Lord, how much will purify our hearts somehow or another. I remember when we were kids, there was one advertisement, it's called Popeye. Popeye the Sailor Man, and he was a scrawny guy, but anyway, he used to eat spinach, and then he become like strong as Tarzan, you know. So it's to encourage kids to eat spinach, because generally kids hate spinach. At least in England they did. So there's like an inspiration. You're going to become strong like Popeye or Tarzan or something, to encourage us. So in the beginning, neophyte stages, of course, as one advances in Krishna consciousness, that doesn't remain as the, let's say, the impetus for one's service. It may then evolve into the mood of feeling inspired or pleased, that you're pleased, that your Guru Maharaj is pleased, and Prabhupada's pleased, the Acharyas are pleased when you distribute books, or whatever service it is. Then it may be, you're very happy to see conditioned souls getting this good fortune. I would mention that good fortune. By the way, good fortune literally means the opportunity to meet a Mahajan or to follow a Mahajan. So one may be inspired by seeing that. One may be inspired by seeing other devotees then doing so many books and becoming enthused. And ultimately one's inspired because one is simply existing for the pleasure of Radharani and Krishna, and how much one may realize how this is pleasing to Radha and Krishna. See, the devotee sees it in a different, pure devotee sees it from a different angle. How to bring pleasure to Radha and Krishna. Preaching means to relieve Krishna's anxiety. Radharani's mode of compassion is she's always thinking how to bring conditioned souls, how to wake them up so that Krishna's pleasure increases. And so naturally, when we see it like that, book distribution is a wake-up call, as is that of all preaching, but specifically book distribution, wake up, wake up, wake up. The devotee is very happy. It's like conquering a whole world. Practically every time a book's distributed, it's so pleasing to Radha. Where are we now? Quick question. I said that. So detached work. Well, another angle of that detached work is this is especially referring to material endeavor. Material endeavor is one thing, spiritual endeavor is another. We must be attached to spiritual endeavor, although we may not be, say, dependent. We may be attached to the result for the pleasure of Krishna. We want to do well. We want to distribute more books. That's what we're doing it for, to get more opportunity, give more fortune to the conditioned souls, to please us. Prabhupada was very pleased when he heard the book distribution of scores read out. He'd love to rehear it. In London, when he was there in 77, Prabhupada was very ill, and some of us said it's disturbing Prabhupada reading out these book scores. But Prabhupada said, no, this is not disturbing me. This is giving me life. He loved to hear it. He wanted to hear the Sankirtan scores. So you may say it sounds a bit fruity, but it's not. It's transcendental to the modes of nature. Material fruits are within the material modes. This is a transcendental activity. It's the Sankirtan movement. It's the movement of spreading Krishna consciousness. So they would love to hear about that. And they want to do more and more and more. And of course, again, the levels of consciousness are there. But in principle, yes, it's great happiness to the devotees when they hear that transcendental literatures are being distributed. And many others, your question is geared towards that. It could be used in pretty much any service. But in this case, the question was geared towards book distribution. So it's very, very pleasing to the devotees. There's certainly no reaction to that. And the more we distribute more transcendental literatures, the more, let's say, benefit, more purification, and more mercy is there. So it's not the same as a material activity. We should be attached to the service. Ultimately, we become attached to the object of service, Sri Krishna himself. in the beginning, we may be attached to the fruits of the service, then the service, and then ultimately attached into whatever opportunity we get for service, and ultimately to the object of the service. Let's see who's next. How can we distinguish properly between devotional service and fruitive activity without being illusioned by our senses? Hare Krishna. How can we become attached? Oh, you got this, the Bhagavad Gita verses. There are several verses like this. How can we distinguish properly between devotional activity and fruitive activity? As we mentioned, 328, we'll quickly refer to 328. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty Arm, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. How do we distinguish? Well, it's easy to theoretically distinguish between them. Fruitive results, that basically means we want to get the result for our own sense gratification, and we're working for our own personal motivation. Work in devotion is supposed to be, as we said just now in the beginning, it may not be so selfless. There may be some mixed motivations there, but pure devotional service is Anyavilasatashrunyam. It is without any motivation or any desire for anything but pleasing Krishna. So how do we distinguish? Well, this is the essential point of today's verse, practically speaking. As Prabhupada was emphasizing how important it is that one works under Shastra direction, which means under the direction of the Mahajans, basically. And the Mahajans themselves are the key here. Otherwise, we're making up our own idea of devotional service, like Ekalavya or something like that. We just try to, I can say it, mechanically or on his own to try to establish himself as eligible without going through the parampara, without the acceptance of the spiritual master in his case. So that's the key feature, is that the service is in relationship with the pure devotees or the disciplic succession. And that's what would distinguish it when the offering is made to one's spiritual authorities, then like that, rather than just doing something and saying it's devotional service, when it's actually fruitive, when it actually maybe Krishna may or may not accept, he can do anything he likes, but for sure when we render service to the pure devotees of the Lord, that service becomes devotional service because they offer it to Krishna, even though we may not be so pure. Krishna doesn't generally accept the offerings of impure personalities. But when we associate and do it under their guidance, then it becomes purifying. And of course, in the long run, one can tell from the results that one who's acting for fruitive results will not be making spiritual advancement, or very, 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 very slowly. But one who is acting in the right mood, without any desire for material returns, there's only desires to serve Krishna or devotees of Krishna, you will see one will be advancing very nicely. Enthusiasm, all good qualities will come in the heart of that devotee, whereas others, the material qualities will still remain. Whereas the pure devotee, Yasyasti Bhakti Bhagavata Kinchana Gunaishavatata Samata Saro, so all the good qualities will manifest in one who is unflinchingly engaged in devotional service. Okay. I think if you read the purport of Srila Prabhupada, I don't know how much Prabhupada explained in the purport. Yeah, another factor you can distinguish is that the reaction, you could say, for one who's engaged in devotional service, that they knew Kampam Susamikshamanam Vajjana Vatmakitam Vapake. The devotee, I was reading this morning, Ambarish Maharaj, how he was harassed by the Vasa Muni, so much so the Vasa wanted to basically kill him. But Ambarish Maharaj was not at all disturbed. He wasn't disturbed. He wasn't trying to defend himself or screaming his head off or whatever. he just simply didn't even ask Krishna, please, Krishna, save me. He just accepted it, took shelter of Krishna. And whatever you want to do with me, my Lord, this is advanced Vaishnava, advanced devotional service. We may not be on that level, but that's the real distinguishing feature, can be seen by how one reacts, not just what one is apparently doing, but how one reacts to circumstances, when, especially when one's put into distress or difficulty, and how a devotee reacts would distinguish whether we're doing it for praise or fruitive returns, or whether we're just this because this is all we are. We're only existing for devotional service. We have no other business. We're not here to enjoy the fruits of the work. We're not here to get praise. This is definitely not the mood of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Although it may be there in the beginning, it's not the essence of this movement by any means. Not at all. The Dhanam, the Jandan, Syndrome, Kavitamba, Dividisha Kamaye. We don't want these things. And one simply wants to please Krishna. And you could go on and on. That's a big subject which can overspill into other topics. But basically speaking, distinguished by the reactions. You can distinguish, you can say, by the results of one's activity, how one's being accepted by the pure devotees or the devotees in general, and that is usually qualified by the pure devotees of the Lord. And when they see someone acting in the mood of a materialistic devotee, is acting only for fruitive results, then by the mercy of Krishna, Krishna will take that away from him. I mean, we all know that on book distribution is a very interesting thing that many of us have experienced. You know, you maybe somehow or another Krishna sends people along, take the books, and you think, wow, I'm doing so well. It happened to me yesterday, and more or less, I remember. I was just setting up, didn't really have a book table per se, I just piled up Bhagavad Gitas yesterday in the city center of Paris. And was just trying to distribute them. And within about 5 or 10 minutes, 3 Bhagavad Gitas had flown out. I thought, well, and 2 Arabic books also. And I thought, wow, today's the day. I thought I got to do my quota. And then 1.5 hours, I think, passed by before another book even went out, another one. And Krishna takes that away, realizing we're not the doer, we're just the instruments for the devotional service to all this, the mercy to flow so other people can get that opportunity. And yeah, in the beginning, many times Krishna encourages us, but in the long run, we just got to take shelter of Krishna, whatever you deserve. It's like Prabhupada said when he came to America, you can do what you like with me, Lord. I'm a puppet in your hands. I have no devotion. You can, if you want me to do something, please make my words suitable, completely depending upon Krishna in that sense, but not for our material returns. Fruity results mean we may turn to God, please give me this, please give me that. Well, he doesn't ask for that. He just asks for service. He knows that Krishna will provide what Ananyas Chinti and Tomami Yanapayapasate will provide whatever we need and preserve whatever we lack. He knows that he doesn't have to ask for it. We ask for devotional service and not the returns. And the results come, Krishna is in control. But we just try to dedicate ourselves, do our best to perform our service as Krishna, encouraging our duty to fight, not for free results, but that's your duty to fight. You should fight for the sake of fighting, in case that can be interpreted materially, but ultimately Krishna is encouraging Arjuna spiritually because he wanted him to fight. Therefore, you should fight. Not only because it's your duty. So Krishna wants it. That's the motive. Okay, well that looks like it. I think. Nice. Sorry. Again, I apologize for my, let's say, I just make sure there's no more questions. My sleepiness, inattentiveness this morning Yeah, well, thank you all very much for that little kirtan. Before we go on our next marathon mission, we'll have to take a little rest, and then we'll be out this morning. We have ladies, 4 ladies are joining our ranks today for the Sankirtan in Paris, and let's see. We hope that they'll new. There's 3 of them are new. They've done a little bit of Sankirtan, but not like this. So they're all coming into a battlefield, into the deep end, full-time book distribution. Yeah. One of them will experience, and hopefully they'll be able to give that direction and guidance to the others. One of the top book distributor here last year. This year, our top book distributor is, well, we'll see. We're only 3 or 4 days into the marathon. It's too early to say. Some of the boys have already distributed like 12 sets of Bhagavad Gita things. So they're, in one sense, they're top, but they haven't been on the streets so much. On the streets, some people have been doing amazing service. Amazing. It's freezing cold. I mean, weather's right on freezing point. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Premandi, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhivyevacha, Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, dear devotees, please take shelter of the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. He's our Mahajan, the eternal associate of the spiritual Dham. Take shelter at his lotus feet. Try to follow the guidance, the mercy that he's given us all, and try to distribute it to others. This way we can be protected from the terrible influences of this material, especially in this present day and age in Kali Yuga. So many challenges are there. I mean, it's a fact. There are many reasons you could say to divert one's attention, or to give up one's endeavors, etc. But try not to be carried away. Take shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Focus on what we know is right. Chanting the holy names, worshipping your deities, respecting Vaishnavas, studying the Shastras of our acharyas, distributing Krishna consciousness to others. At least that much we can try to do in our life, or some of it, as much as we can. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Prabhupada Ki Jai. Haribo. Haribo.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Haribo.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Gurudev. Hare Paul, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.